Act. This is a regularly scheduled meeting pursuant to a resolution adopted on January 2nd, 2018, with a meeting notice published in the Hunterdon County Democrat issue of January 11th, 2018. Copy of the agenda for this meeting was forwarded to the Hunterdon County Democrat, Times of Trenton, Star Ledger, Courier News, posted on the bulletin board, filed in the clerk's office on December 21st, 2018.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I'd like to, okay.
Under agenda,
Yeah, are there any changes to the agenda?
okay, I'm sorry, you wanted to,
Yeah, well, that was the order of things, so
Okay.
if you like. So, first on the agenda, item number 3 is recognition of outgoing township committee member, a resolution of appreciation for township committee member David Wang Iverson. Unfortunately, David is enjoying the holidays and was unable to be here in person, but I'd like to read into the record a resolution of appreciation. Whereas David Wang Iverson has served on the Township Committee of East Amwell Township, County of Hunterdon, State of New Jersey, for a period of 6 years, from January 2013 through December 2018, serving as mayor during the years of 2015 and 2016. And whereas committee member Wang Iverson's term on the Township Committee will be ending on December 31st, 2018, concluding a challenging and successful career in municipal government. And whereas committee member Wang Iverson's commitment to his role was shown in his active communications with residents, officials, outside agencies, and municipal staff. And whereas during his term, committee member Wang Iverson took proactive steps and made many lasting contributions to East Amwell Township, including his involvement with the preservation of properties in East Amwell while serving on the Farmland and Open Space Preservation Committee, his work on development as a member of the Planning Board, including affordable housing planning and redevelopment of the village area by taking the lead on ordinances for maintenance of deteriorating properties and registration of abandoned properties, and his continued work on protecting the health and safety of the municipality as a longtime member of the Board of Health, in addition to many other township-related activities. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Township Committee of the Township of East Amwell officially recognizes David Wang Iverson's long and devoted service to East Amwell Township and extends to him this resolution of appreciation for his contributions to the residents of East Amwell, and be it further resolved that this resolution of appreciation be presented to David Wang Iverson by the mayor of East Amwell Township, and a copy be included in the official minutes of the East Amwell Township Committee. By order of the Township Committee, Tim Matthews, Mayor. Do I have a motion to adopt this resolution?
I'll move the resolution of appreciation.
I'll second it.
Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. And for the record, I signed an official version that will be framed. Terry, can we do that? Frame it for Mr. Wang Iverson? Okay. Okay, Terry, are there any changes to the agenda?
just a couple things. There's an additional item of correspondence, was a PSE&G update on activities throughout the year. And the other, under new business, discussion on the amount of the umbrella policy for ACE.
Okay, that'll be item C. Okay, announcements. There's a recycling container in the municipal lobby for plastics collection for Trex. A local church is trying to collect 500 pounds of special plastics to acquire a bench for a property in the township. Visit the township website for further information. Clausen House, operating as the East Amwell Museum, is now open for general public with hours on Saturday and Sunday from 1 to 4 p.m. Free radon kits are available to residents at the Hunterdon County Health Department at the County Complex Building 1 office location from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. daily. Call 908-788-1351 for details. The new East Amwell website is up and running. If anyone has any comments, good or bad, please direct them to Allison Castellano at Allison_Wright@hotmail.com. Municipal offices will be closed on the following dates: December 31st, 2018, and January 1st, 2019. The Township Committee will reorganize on Wednesday, January 2nd, 2019, at 7:30 p.m. All other Township committees, boards, and commissions are posted on the bulletin board and on the website. I think that's their reorganization dates are posted? Yes. Okay. Item 6, there are no special discussions this evening. Item 7, standing committee report. A, the Environmental Commission. We received an email from Patsy Wang Iverson that we received approval for 825 trees from New Jersey DEP's tree recovery campaign. So those will be coming in the spring and will be handed out at various events. So look forward to more information on the website about them. And I want to thank Patsy Wang Iverson for taking the lead on getting that and making that happen. There's no minutes to approve this evening. Okay, we're now open to the public. Do I have a motion to open to the public?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're now open to the public for any comments not on tonight's agenda. Motion to close?
I'll move to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Item 10, consent agenda items. There are none. There are no public hearings or introductions of ordinances, and there's no special committee reports. So we're going to take some unfinished business. First, item A, the Municipal Alliance application. I think I've read through that. I think I asked some questions. I think, Terry, you provided me answers to those.
It's all handled by the county. There's no money involved from the township. In-kind and everything is taken care of at the county because it's a county-run program.
Okay.
Dawn Palomino takes care of all of it, and it's a group activity with all the sending districts, Hunterdon County, or Hunterdon Central High School. We've been participating for a number of years. It's their drug awareness program.
Okay. Yeah, it was unclear with the matching as to whether or not the township had a financial responsibility.
No.
Okay, so given that, Terry, I'll just need whatever I need.
Yep. Just,
We have to have it in by the
a motion
19th.
to approve the mayor signing the application for the Municipal Alliance Program.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so I'll sign that
Okay.
as soon as possible. Okay, item B, October 18th SHBP notice, incentives and higher deductible programs for employees. So this is a program that's being offered that if employees opt into a higher deductible, there's some cash incentives that are dealt to them via credit card. There are some obligations in the municipality to manage it, to deal with the opting in, the opting out, the reimbursements. I asked Terry to check if anyone in the township would be interested, and the answer is no. No employees would be interested. So I think it's a moot point. I don't think there's any action we need to take.
Mute or move?
Moot. It is a moot point. I believe they're spelled the same way. No, actually.
M-O-O-T-M-U-T-E.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, item C, an update on the helipad application for the Ridge at Backbrook, if applicable. Rick, I think you have some more information?
I do, but I'm in the process of organizing it, and I'll send out a written update in the next couple days.
Okay.
Very good.
Okay, item D, we're going to talk about in executive session the tax appeal stipulation documents for the Ridge. CFO contract, we're going to discuss that in executive session. Further discussion on bicycling in East Amwell. I believe you had some comments, Rick, you wanted to make on that?
Yes. Mr. Wolfgang came in at our last Township Committee meeting to discuss cycling in East Amwell Township, mainly to criticize some of the comments that you had made at an earlier meeting. My gut was telling me that some or perhaps virtually all of what he said was incorrect, but I wanted to go and check my facts before I responded, which I did. And so I'd like to respond. But I'd like to preface the response by saying that I've been running for 43 years. I started when I was 15. I ran my first marathon when I was 17. I've run 10 of them in my much, much younger days. There have been years where I've run 5,000 to 6,000 miles in a year. So I've spent a lot of time on the roads. I'm very much in favor of people utilizing roads for exercise, whether it's running, walking, cycling. It's certainly been a good thing for me. It put me through college, and it's been largely responsible for getting me to where I am today. So I'm very much in favor of people exercising on the roads. But one thing that I learned very early on is the roads are principally for automobiles. And while automobiles are supposed to share the roads with walkers, riders, cyclists, etc., they're principally for automobiles. And if you pick a fight with an automobile, you're not going to win. You're not going to win as a runner, you're not going to win as a cyclist. And invariably you're going to encounter drivers who are going to be rude to you because they're having a bad day, they're having family issues, whatever. It is what it is. You have to let it go. You're not going to win a fight with an automobile. Blocking the road, retaliating, etc., is not going to do you any benefit. It's only going to put you at risk, and tends to create a bad reputation for whatever sport you're participating in. With that little preface, I'd like to address Mr. Wolfgang's points. Frequency. I don't know where he got his statistics, but he was talking about going on the internet and seeing only a few races in East Amwell Township. I don't know what he means by races, but I can tell you that each year we're asked to approve at least several bicycling events in East Amwell Township. And the ones we approve are not the only ones that occur. There are a number that occur without our approval. They should be getting our approval, but for one reason or another they don't. There are also, I think, a lot of informal bicycling clubs, etc., that, well, not 1,000 people can be a significant number of people cycling on the road on any given weekend. So I disagree with Mr. Wolfgang about the frequency. This is actually a rather frequent occurrence in East Amwell. Mr. Wolfgang said that under New Jersey law, cyclists have the right to ride two abreast on the roads in New Jersey. Well, as I found to be the case with a lot of things that Mr. Wolfgang says, that's only part of the story and is actually not an accurate reflection of New Jersey law. I will read you New Jersey law, 39:4-14.2. It's part of the motor vehicle and traffic regulation provisions of New Jersey law. And it lists do's and don'ts for cyclists. And the fifth do or don't is to travel no more than two abreast when traffic is not impeded. Persons riding bicycles upon a roadway may travel no more than two abreast when traffic is not impeded, but otherwise shall ride in single file, except on paths or parts of roadways set aside for exclusive use of bicycles. New Jersey elaborates that on the New Jersey, or in the New Jersey Bicycling Manual. And it says, New Jersey law allows bicyclists to travel up to two abreast, but not more than two when traffic is not impeded. Given the relatively high average traffic volume on New Jersey roadways, there is limited opportunity to ride side by side with another bicyclist. An exception would be where there are wide shoulders. If you are riding two abreast, as soon as you begin to impede traffic flow, you must resume riding single file as described above. As a general rule, it is best to ride single file. The roads in East Amwell Township are narrow. I don't think anyone would dispute that. Riding two abreast on most roads will impede traffic. My guess is Mr. Wolfgang has had issues riding in East Amwell with traffic because he believes under New Jersey law that he can ride two abreast. And that's what creates the problems. Riding two abreast on the narrow roads in East Amwell is asking for trouble. You are going to impede traffic, period. Third point, which I'd like to discuss, was litter. Mr. Wolfgang walked in with 2 bags of litter. He sat them down. They sounded rather heavy, a lot of bottles. He said that Mr. Matthews had made the statement that cyclists throw their wrappers and other type of paper products on the roads, and he didn't find any of that when he was out there collecting litter. Well, he was collecting litter at a time when cyclists are not heavily using the road. Why do I raise that? Well, let's think about it for a minute. You throw a paper wrapper in the gutter. What happens to that paper wrapper when it rains? It goes down the gutter into the stream. What are you going to find alongside the road? The bottles. You're not going to find the wrappers because the wrappers wash away. So the notion that the cyclists aren't littering because he didn't find anything in November or December, just found bottles, or mainly bottles, is nonsense. There is litter. It's washing away. For the same reason you don't find the paper that's blowing out of the recycling truck. It washes away or it blows away. So I'm not surprised he didn't find the wrappers alongside the road. A lot of these riders, probably most of them, are not East Amwell residents. They're not paying taxes here. They're not really doing anything to benefit the community. That's not to say that I object to them riding in our community. It's a beautiful place to visit. It's a beautiful place to live. But you have to be respectful. You can't come into the community and block the roads. And when the residents try to pass you, throw them the middle finger. That's just not acceptable. He also talked about riders not tossing bottles because they spend money on these plastic water bottles and they're reusable. I don't dispute that when you're talking about the serious cyclists. But I see a lot of cyclists in East Amwell who are not serious cyclists, who are riding with just your regular ShopRite water bottles. And those things are getting tossed. So I can't necessarily say that the rules that are followed by serious cyclists who have expensive equipment and aren't discarding it are the same rules that are followed by people who are just casual riders. So why am I even spending time on responding to Mr. Wolfgang on this? Well, first of all, I don't like the way he distorted what Mr. Matthews said. I don't like the fact that he did not accurately represent the law and certain other facts. But I also want to make the point that at some point the Township Committee is going to have to address cycling in East Amwell. Because the mayor and I this past year have received a number of complaints, and I don't mean just one or two, either by email or by phone, or while we're out in the community from residents who have had problems with cyclists. I know in my own situation, I came inches from probably killing a cyclist who blew a stop sign when I was driving down a road in the township in my pickup truck. Literally inches. Blew right through the stop sign. Had I not been paying attention for a second, had I been going even the speed limit, or had I had a load in that pickup truck, I would have taken him out with that pickup truck. He stopped. He was incredibly apologetic. But it's that kind of behavior that gives cyclists a bad reputation. Now, what would have happened if I had hit that cyclist? Yeah, I may not have had liability because he blew the stop sign, but what impact do you think that would have had on me for the rest of my life, hitting somebody? I can also tell you that I work in my home office quite a bit, and my home office looks out over Rynearson Road. It looks out over the farm. Not infrequently, I see cyclists riding up and down Rynearson Road in the heat in the summer, get off their cycles, and go to the bathroom right there along Rynearson Road. They just pull over and go. Once I saw 3 of them going together, right there alongside the road. I've seen cyclists litter. I've seen cyclists block traffic. I've seen cyclists get irritated at the farmers who are driving down, for example, narrow Rynearson Road with a wide piece of equipment, go by the farmer, throw them the middle finger. All of that's the exception. I'm not saying that's the rule. I'm not saying that's the majority of cyclists. But on the other hand, that creates issues in the town. And that behavior is what winds up leading to ordinances, etc. So that's really the reason why I'm raising this. We do have to deal with it in some fashion. We did invite someone from Hunterdon County to come and discuss the ordinance or potential for an ordinance.
The the information that Go Hunterdon Park provided. They were unable to send a representative. That's
Okay.
the information she gave us in September or October.
Because we've had sort of a loose procedure for people applying for permits, et cetera, and we have to tighten that up. And I'm not looking to ban cyclists or impede residents from cycling, but on the other hand, we can't have flocks of people who have no real connection to East Amwell coming into the town, littering, tying up the roads, et cetera. We're going to have to work out something. That's all I have on the cycling.
Okay, thank you. And Terry did provide a draft outline of an application and the contents of such application. So I think we ought to take that under consideration. And as we move into the winter and early spring, we should take action on how we want to loosely use the term regulate cycling in the town. Okay, anything else on that topic? Anyone have any contributions? No. Okay, item G is further discussion on the solar ordinance. Rick, I think you had some comments you want to make.
I did. By way of background, I had received a number of letters over the last few months from solar companies wanting to lease my property for a commercial solar field. I spoke to a number of other people who own property, farm property, unpreserved, in my neck of the woods, in East Amwell Township, and since I'm close to the border with Delaware Township, I spoke to some of the farm owners in Delaware Township, and they had all received, I imagine, the same letters, because they all had received a bunch of letters recently. And that got me thinking about our existing solar ordinance and the issues that I've discussed in great detail about the existing commercial solar field that exists on 604 and the problems that were associated with that. Went off and did some research to find out what New Jersey's thinking was on putting solar fields on farmland. Lo and behold, there are reports that were issued by the state. I've discussed them in detail at prior meetings. I won't discuss them in detail again, but basically New Jersey is moving in the direction of not wanting to put commercial solar fields on farmland. I've actually done some poking around since then, and other states, including New York, are moving in the same direction. They really don't want to see solar fields put on farmland. There was, after the ordinance was introduced, we received a letter from the Department of Environmental Protection, and basically it reiterated what was in the preamble to my ordinance, that they want communities to look very carefully at where they site solar fields, and we really shouldn't be siting solar fields on what is called non-preferred land, which is farmland. And this letter is was included in the correspondence, I believe, at our last meeting, if anyone wants to read it.
I'm sorry, just for the record, can you tell me the date of the letter from the DEP so I can make sure it's available?
I printed out the first page of it, Terry. It
Okay.
doesn't have a date on it. We got it a few weeks ago. It may be on the second page.
Okay.
But you had, I think, forwarded it to us.
Okay.
Or Pam may have.
Okay,
Pam
all right.
forwarded it to us.
Thank you.
But I have it on the computer. I can get you.
Okay.
So we introduced it by a 4-to-1 vote. David Wong Iverson voted against the introduction. We wound up passing it at the last meeting by a 3-to-1 vote. We had one committee person absent, and David Wong Iverson voted against it again. At the last meeting where we approved it, Candace Wiggum did a presentation against us approving this solar ordinance. And I found the presentation troubling, sitting there listening to it. I decided not to respond at that time, but rather to get a copy of the presentation, reflect upon it, and then respond, and that's what I did. And so I would like to respond to her presentation. She wrote in her presentation, the major question that arose was, why is the Township Committee proposing this ordinance? The in-force ordinance contains provisions that impose constraints on solar farms and mitigates many of the concerns associated with solar farm development. The in-force ordinance is the one that allowed the solar farm that, I don't even want to call it a solar farm, the commercial solar field that exists on 604 was constructed in accordance with our in-force ordinance. Anyone who drives by that solar field who says to themselves that that ordinance mitigated the concerns associated with solar farm development, in my view, is blind. The impact that that solar field has had on what was otherwise a beautiful vista on 604 is significant. The impact that had on the residents who live around that solar field was even more significant. Property value. That solar field undoubtedly has significantly impacted their property values. The emotional impact, which I witnessed firsthand dealing with one of the residents. The screening, even after going back and forth with the solar company, does not represent at all or reflect at all what they represented to us the screening would look like. They flaunted our rules. They turned on those solar panels without having the appropriate approvals. They relocated things without coming back to East Amwell and raising it with us. They just flaunted this entire ordinance. So the notion that this in-force ordinance will constrain or address the concerns of solar farm development, in my view, is just nonsense. Absolute nonsense. I don't even know how Candace could say that with a straight face, how she could go by 604 and say with a straight face that that ordinance addresses it. In fact, we had a meeting with the planner and the engineer, David, myself, the planner, the engineer, a couple of other people. I asked the question, why isn't there screening blocking the view off of 604? This in-force ordinance requires the solar field to be shielded from view. The response was, you can't put that screening there because there are power lines above it, and under federal regulations, you can't screen under power lines. I asked the question, then if it can't satisfy this ordinance, our existing ordinance, why did we allow it to be built? No response. Why? Because nobody on the township committee at that time bothered to actually monitor the construction of this solar field. You want to talk about David's legacy on the township committee? That's his legacy, the solar field. That's David's legacy. I had a conversation with David back in October of 2017. And he and I were going back and forth about the inadequate screening on that solar field. David said in an email, as I said at our meeting, I'm willing to ask one more time about the trees, but I will not support going to war, to use your phrase, with the developer. He wasn't willing to play hardball with the developer. He was perfectly happy letting the developer walk all over us. My response was, I'm not surprised by your comment about the effort you're willing to make, or more accurately, not willing to make, to get the solar company to fulfill its obligations under the developer's agreement. You handled this badly from inception, and unfortunately, Mrs. Reinierson is suffering the consequences. Let me be clear on this point. You may not care about Mrs. Reinierson, but I do. She is 89 years old and doesn't deserve to spend her remaining years on this earth staring at solar panels. This township let her down, and I'm not going to allow that to continue. Thus, I will strongly support going to war with the solar company to get them to honor their obligations under the developer's agreement. This is what it degraded to with that solar company. Now, ultimately, we did get the solar company to plant additional trees. I think part of the reason is because they recognize that, I've been a lawyer for 31 years, and their threats about this and that didn't move me at all, and if they wanted to go to war, I was prepared to go to war. And ultimately, Mrs. Reinierson got compensated for the damage to her property and got the additional trees. But even with the additional trees, that screening will never be what it was represented to be. The next statement in Candace's presentation. The proposed ordinances references the loss of agricultural use as a rationale for limiting solar development on farms. But some studies find that solar farms actually improve soils by increasing soil moisture levels and biomass and create opportunities for grazing and other agricultural uses. She then suggested that we could graze cattle and sheep on the solar fields to make productive use of them. I don't even know how to respond to something like that with a straight face. First of all, I'm highly skeptical that you can graze 2,000-pound cattle around solar panels unless you elevate the solar panels. And if you elevate the solar panels, you now have them more visible. And how many farmers around here are going to make profitable use of their farmland by grazing sheep around the solar panels? And yes, there are studies out there that say you can grow things under solar panels that you couldn't grow in the open sun. But what is a farmer going to do? Grow soybeans under solar panels and harvest them by hand? I mean, it's nonsensical. She then went on to quote some statements that were made by people who gave input. Well, one of those people who gave input sent me the entire statement, and Candace selectively took a portion of the statement, not the entire statement. So she took something out of context. This presentation, in my view, isn't worth the paper it's written on. I'd like to make a couple of other points before I wrap this up. I did actually talk to farmers about this solar ordinance. I talked to Dave Bond. I don't think anyone would dispute that Dave Bond knows farming. I also doubt that anyone would dispute that Dave Bond is the first one to step in to defend farmers' rights. So if anyone was going to object to this solar ordinance, I would have thought it would be Dave Bond, which is why I called Dave Bond. I called Dave Bond before we even introduced the solar ordinance. Dave Bond was incredibly supportive. He even offered to come to a township committee meeting if I requested. Dave's response was, it doesn't make sense to take good farmland out of farming and put solar panels on it. It's hard to argue with that. I spoke to Jared Weeks, who farms my property and a lot of other farmland. I spoke to Jared because he's probably one of our youngest farmers in the town. So I wanted to get the perspective of a young farmer. Jared farms over 300 acres at any given time, has around 150 head of cattle. He's one of, I believe, only 2 dairy farmers in this general area. Jared made a number of good points. I want to discuss a few of those good points, and then his points got me thinking about other points. First, best I can tell, most of the farms in East Amwell that are attractive candidates for commercial solar fields, unpreserved farms, are not farmed by their owners. My farm isn't. The Perkovich's farm isn't. The Stahl farm is hit and miss. Helen Reinerson's farm isn't. The Thompson farms aren't. Most of the farms that aren't in preservation are not farmed by their owners. So if I go out and I lease my farm to a solar company, what am I doing for the farmers? I'm taking 90 acres out of farmland to line my pocket. I'm not a farmer. So the notion that somehow the farmers are being harmed by this ordinance because it doesn't allow commercial solar fields on farmland is simply false with respect to most of our unpreserved farms, because the people who own them aren't farming them. In certain instances, those farms are owned by people who don't even live on them and don't even live near them. I happen to live on my farm, but there are a number of them around me. The owners don't live on the farm, so if they put it in solar, they're not even suffering the consequences of having to look at the ugly solar field because they don't live on the farm. Jared made a very good point that the solar companies buy some of these farms. They don't just lease them. When they no longer need the farms for solar, 20, 25 years from now, when their panels are obsolete and we're on to different technology, Or we have so much solar in other areas, they don't need to put a new field on the farm. What do you think these companies who are investor-driven are going to do with that farmland? You think they're going to sell it to a farmer at $8,000 an acre, which is about the most that they can pay, and still profit from farming? No. They're not going to hold on to the farmland. They're going to sell it to who pays the highest price. Well, it's not preserved land, so who could wind up paying the highest price? A developer. As less farmland is available to farm, which is what happens when you put commercial solar fields on these farms, the farmers start competing with each other for what farmland is available. Once that starts happening, the owners of the farms can then start charging rent, which Jared told me he is starting to see. So as you put this in to solar, commercial solar, the farmers are now competing against each other for the land that remains. It's more cost efficient to farm larger blocks. So when you start putting portions of your farm into solar, you are now making it less efficient for you to farm. Cost efficient. The argument in favor of allowing it is, well, the farmers can put commercial solar fields on their farms and use that money to pay their property tax in bad times. The farmers can put their land into preservation, take the money, put it in a trust, pay their property taxes from now till the end of time, and still farm the farm. You put it in solar, you're not farming the farm anymore. Lastly, the solar ties up the land for 20 to 25 years. Good luck trying to put that into preservation if you change your mind when the field is all solar. Or good luck trying to sell your farm. You may at some point decide you want to sell, that may be the best alternative. You're not doing that with a solar field, a commercial solar field. That ain't happening. Candace's presentation also entirely ignores the impact that a commercial solar field has on the people around it. People move to East Amwell because of the open space, because of the natural vistas. You don't have the right in East Amwell to complain if you smell horses or cows. You should know if you're moving into a farm community, you may smell horses and cows. But when you move into a farm community like East Amwell, you don't expect to wake up the next morning and have a commercial solar field next to your house. That's not what you signed up for. Particularly a town that is so driven by preserving the beauty, the environment, the vistas. So, quite frankly, I came to the conclusion, because I actually have a great deal of respect for Candace, and I like her personally. But I came to the conclusion that the presentation wasn't a heartfelt presentation. It was just another case of a group of people who's really upset that control changed up here at the dais and will say or do anything to criticize anything we try to do. If I say the sky is blue, invariably it'll appear in the VIP that the sky is orange. And that this was nothing more than a political hack job on an ordinance, because there are a group of people who don't want the group here to get credit for doing anything good. So no matter what we do, we will be criticized. I asked Terry to invite Candace to tonight's meeting. I don't know whether you ever did or not.
Yes, she's had an injury, so she won't be out for a
But she is welcome to attend any future meeting, and she is welcome to continue this discussion, or anyone else who wants to discuss it on her behalf. But I did not want to leave that presentation dangling. Because quite frankly, if nothing else is accomplished in the time that I'm on this committee, however long or short it may be, this solar ordinance, I smile. It makes me feel good. Because I think this solar ordinance is really good for East Amwell. And if I'm not able to accomplish anything else, and the solar ordinance is it, I'll walk away happy, because I think this is a really good thing for the town. And with the exception of Candace and David, I have had no one else say anything but positive about this ordinance. In fact, Kathy and I were at a dinner. We were talking to some people about it from Delaware Township, and their response was, we should get Delaware Township to do the same thing. So that's all I have to say. I just didn't want to leave that hanging out there.
Well, thank you. Very well said. Appreciate that. Anyone have any comments? Anything
No,
further to
well
add?
stated. Agreed.
Okay, item 14, new business. We're going to talk about the RFQ responses that you all received. So last meeting, you all got a package to review. We'll have a brief discussion about that in executive session. And we're going to talk about an email from the engineer regarding the Linvale Road project in executive session. So under new business, we have the PACE insurance umbrella is our final item before we have it open to the public and an executive session. So I believe what's happening with PACE is they've offered us to increase our umbrella coverage. I assume there's a fee associated with that, and I think, Rick, you did some follow-up Q&A with either the insurance broker or Terry or someone.
Both.
Yeah, if you could just summarize what you found.
Well, the umbrella for East Amwell is sort of like a personal umbrella. It's a liability policy. You can choose your cap, 5, 10, or 15 million. We right now have the 5 million cap. There were prices given for each level. The 10 was not significantly more than the 5. I believe it was around 700. And so the question was, do we stay at 5 or do we bump up our cap? The insurance broker response was, we have a history of no real material claims, so the impression I got from the email he sent back was that he thought 5 was enough. I'm not sure that I agree with that rationale. I mean, I've never had a personal liability claim at all, so I could say, gee, I don't need an umbrella policy at all based on my personal history. You know, you buy this kind of insurance because of things that come out of the blue. And in this day and age, it doesn't take much to have $5 million worth of liability. One injured child and you have $5 million or more of liability. So it's not clear to me that we should necessarily just say, because of our loss experience, 5 is adequate, given that the cost to go up to 10 or 15 was not monumentally more than 5. We ought to think about whether we want to go to a higher level. And I don't have a strong view one way or another. I just know that 5 million today isn't like it was 10 or 15 years ago. And you know, one accident with a municipal vehicle that hurts a couple of people and you could blow past those limits. And so we ought to decide whether we want to bump it up or not.
Is that a decision we have?
The premiums for the current, it's $14.46 for 10 million, it's $21.34, and for 15 million, $25.15. So it just goes up like 1,000.
Right, so it's about 700 more to go from 10 to 15, and I'm sorry, from 5 to 10, and it's about 1,050 more to go from 5 to 15.
I think if you're going to go up, I mean, I don't see a big difference between 5 and 10 and 5 and 15. I mean, I would think, you know, given today's world we're in, you could easily get to 15 just as easily as you can get to 5. So I think, Terry, is this something that has to be decided before end of year, or is this something we could consider as part of the budget?
No, I think we could probably do it as part of the budget, and I'll confirm that with Steve tomorrow.
So why don't we communicate to Margaret to include an increase in the insurance premium in the budget, and then see where that lands as we talk through the budget.
Okay.
Yeah.
Up to the 15?
Well, to go the first bump from 5 to 10, it's $688 extra. To go from 5 to 15 is 1,069.
All right.
So that additional bump is it's $381 basically for that last 5 million.
Mhm.
So the first 5 is 688, the last 5 is 381. To go from 5 to 10 is 688, to go from 10 to 15 is 381. For a total of 1069 if we want to go from 5 to 15. I think we should at least go to 10. That's my own view. Whether we go to 15, I don't have a strong view, but 5 in this day and age just doesn't strike me as enough.
I'd like to recommend we seed the budget at the 15 number.
Yeah.
And then as we have our discussions, if we have
See
to
how it
look for
shakes down.
places to save money, we could reduce it back down to the 10,
Yeah.
or even back to the 5 for that matter,
Yeah.
if we need to. But at least let's start considering. But I think it is prudent. It's one of those things, like everything else, hasn't been adjusted or changed in probably decades. So it's probably worth doing.
Look, odds are we'll never need it, but boy, if we do need it, we'll be awfully glad we have it.
Yes. Okay. Do I have a motion to open to the public?
So moved.
Second?
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're open to the public for any comments at all. No public comments? Do I have a motion to close?
I'll make a motion to close.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're closed. Okay, we are now going to move into executive session.
Resolution to enter executive session.
I'll make that resolution.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I would expect it to be no more than 30 minutes for those in the public who want to, and Mary Ann, you're going to join us? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll cover your topic first.
Okay, thank you.
Resolution by the Township Committee of East Amwell Township that it hereby appoints Margaret Pasqua as the CFO for East Amwell Township for a one-year term commencing January 1st, 2019 and ending December 31st, 2019. The CFO shall work 36 hours per week over 5 days, 12 hours per week at Holland Township and 24 hours per week at East Amwell Township as per the current shared services contract, which expires December 31st, 2019. And an annual salary of $82,203 with benefits, including 15 paid vacation days, 5 paid sick days, and 3 paid personal days. The annual salary may be increased if and to the extent the Township Committee grants raises to East Amwell Township employees, including the CFO, in 2019. Do I have a motion to accept this resolution?
I'll move that motion.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. I think that's the only action we needed to take. Coming out of it. Okay, we're on to administrative reports.
Okay, there was the resolution for the bridge, or is that a new one, a stipulation one?
That resolution was approved last
Yeah.
meeting.
So that's the
at
one
their-
that was approved at the
Yes,
last
yeah.
meeting? Okay, I'm sorry, then.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Looks like we have a resolution of the CFO for some, excuse me, some transfers.
Yes. Yep, it's a transfer resolution for $6,000. That's transfer to the planning board from various other line items.
I have a motion to,
I'll make the motion to move the resolution for the transfer of the $6,000.
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
There's bills of the evening.
Bills of the evening. Yeah, we had one item, a question. Did we get a response back on the?
Yes, I thought I'd send it to you. I did talk to Lisa because the Secretary for Environmental Commission is away for vacation, or she doesn't have hours. Long story short, these were bills for items that the Environmental Commission was purchasing, easels that were approved like $40 at the last meeting. and $122 for this meeting were for posters. They're for items that are gonna be used for a long time, almost permanently, for any of the displays that Environmental Commission does at any of the booths and everything. They came in, I guess, like in the summer, but they came in with just a copy of the bill, but not an explanation, and there was no PO. POs were just approved at the last meeting and this meeting, and Margaret did advise the boards that really you can't, people shouldn't be purchasing, it should be coming through a PO and purchased in office, so they have been notified of that for the future.
Isn't environmental already over its budget?
I don't,
I thought I saw
Yeah.
something that they've already gone past their budget.
don't know, these things were purchased earlier in the year,
All right,
so.
I can talk to Margaret about
Okay.
that.
Yeah, I have two concerns. This is the second month in a row where Ms. Davis asked for reimbursements for purchases on behalf of the Environmental Commission. And I believe Mr. Wolf is correct, they're over budget. So this is in my view, a way around the budget, to go out and buy things and then get reimbursed, as opposed to buying them through the budget line item. So I have a real problem with it. I'm not sure I want to hold it up, the reimbursement, but I would like a written explanation from the Environmental Commission to this Township Committee explaining the practice and what these things were and why.
Okay.
And I did request, I think I requested you, Terry, to ask them to
Yes,
give us
I
that.
sent you the email
okay.
explaining.
Is it from you or from them?
Just from me.
Okay, I would like the chair and/or Ms. Davis to formally send a letter of explanation to this Township Committee explaining the practices that were used and why they were used.
Yeah, I'd like to know what the posters are also. What are these posters?
I can send you the email.
Okay, that would be
copy
fine.
of the- well, actually, it's on the bill, right here.
And also last month was very odd too. It was reimbursement of something.
I don't remember, but I remember you pointed it out.
Shows a picture of the posters.
Let's see what the picture is.
I'll just mention this now because it's a good time to mention it. There used to be a volunteer memo, and I remember last year in
Yeah.
January, I asked you about sending it.
Yeah.
And I never heard from you, so we didn't send the volunteer memo in January, but it might be something, whoever the mayor is, to consider sending that out. Part of that explains the policy to all the boards, and since there are new members
Yeah.
coming in.
Could you send us that memo again, please?
Sure.
Just so that we could spruce that up for,
I know. $76 for one poster.
yeah.
If they're over budget, I'm not happy about
Yeah,
this.
yeah, well, I don't like is the practice. These might be useful things they need, but the practice
Yeah.
Right.
of non-employees buying things on personal credit cards and then asking for reimbursement, just, to me, is something I'm sure our QPA wouldn't agree
That's
with.
part of the
Yeah.
volunteer memo, so I
Yeah.
will send that to you.
Okay.
And I'll ask them for a written explanation. Are you pulling that bill then from the?
No, since it's a personal expense, I'm not gonna leave her out to
Right.
dry, but I do want a written explanation in detail, explaining what these were, why this process was used, and who authorized it.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so do I have a motion to move the bills of the evening?
I'll move the bills.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, were there any tax collector resolutions?
I just send this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a resolution here from, there's a resolution for Mr. Lavish for a homestead benefit for Mr. Lavish. I believe he is a veteran, right, that gets relief from taxes,
Yes.
right? Yeah, we've done this before for him.
And this is
Yes.
the homestead exemption. Came to the township.
Motion to move this resolution?
Yeah, I'll move the resolution for the
Second.
tax benefit.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then the CFO, this was the old CFO resolution. We had the.
That's the one that doesn't have the modifications.
Okay, no tax collector. Correspondence, there is something Terry provided, which has some leadership classes, so there's a lot of good free, are these free, Terry? Were these ones free, or some of these have fees? We do usually allow elected officials to take a course or two. So, you know, look at what the county has to offer, and also, what's the other source, what's the source that has those classes? The MEL, or?
The League of Municipalities?
Yeah, League of Municipalities, yeah.
And that's, I think that's the one, the new officials.
Okay.
And there's money in the budget, even in the temporary budget. It's important for you.
All right, good. All right, thank you. I'll let you know what I,
We've all taken, or at least I've taken one or two of these over
yeah, that's why I
the
got these
years.
basics down.
Okay. Anything else in correspondence that's noteworthy? No. Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're done. Well, I'm done.
Terry, can you send me whatever list you have of who is on each committee currently and when their terms expire? I want to compare yours to mine,
Okay.
and mine's a little behind because I didn't update it this year.
Okay.
And then I want to have a master list for the committees, which I want to ideally put together this weekend, that you and I agree is the list.
Okay.
So we know where we stand on the committees, who's up for reappointment, what vacancies we have on each committee,
Okay.
so we can, and then we have a couple of committees that we have to get moving on, the Green Team and the Ringo's Village. They've kind of taken a back seat because other things have come up. This Hella stuff has put a lot of things on the back burner, but we want to focus on those in the new year. There are grants we can get through that Green Team, and I don't want to let those slide. I want to get some people on the Green Team and start looking at the potential grants that we can get.
Yeah, and we have 2 volunteers, I think, for that as well.
Joe and
Erica.
Yeah, correct.
Erica is,
Yep.
right, and we haven't done anything, because,
No, it's been on hold, I understand.
and then there's been some discussion of possibly merging environmental and the Green Team and have just one committee, and that's a whole
I
lot
don't
of can
have
of
to
worms.
take lunch, but
Yeah.
let's move
No,
on.
No, we're adjourned.
We're done.
Okay. Let you know that I have some snacks and.
I'm gonna hit that checks mix right
Go
now.
get the check.
Do we have